Hey class, Prof JC here, and as I say every single week, I really appreciate this class because I'm able to kind of share with you life lessons if I never see you again. And this was the last interaction that we had, and unfortunately it's just online. I wish we could be in person. I think that this class in particular, we would actually have a lot of great discussions, but nevertheless, what's great is I get to kind of leave these videos with you. But so I'm going through these next weeks and just looking at if there's anything that I can leave with you, kind of the last words, right, before you go off into your journeys and you leave this season behind you, this season of getting your master's degree. And so I'm hoping that this is that this is adding value. Today is, I would say, a really important one that I want to share with you. This has been an absolute game changer for me. And, I think we're calling this the power of journaling, right? It literally has been one of the most powerful tools that I have seen in my entire life. When I first started journaling, I want to say it was back in 2011, 2012, maybe 2009, 2010, but maybe like I did 2 journals in an entire year. And I just did the best I could. I didn't really know too much about it. Fast forward to this year, last year, and the year before, and I would say 2021 especially, because it was such a difficult year for me personally. I was in a season of transition and trying to figure things out. And one of the tools I used that year was to every day, if possible, journal. And so I journal at 10-point font, single space, with 0.5 margins. And that year, 2021, I had over 600 pages of journaling. Last year, I had 400 and something pages. This year, we're in almost to the end of April, the end of the first quadrimester, almost 4 months into this year. Can you believe it? So we're about a third of the way through this year already. And I've got about 150 pages. I say all that to say this. It has been a powerful tool for me. I'm a huge believer in self-development. I want you to be a huge believer in self-development. It's my belief that as leaders, that's what we've got to be focused on, right? We've got to be focused on self-development in those moments that we can, so that when we get into the organization, when we get in front of the team, it is 100% all about them. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about the new senior pastor of a church up in Lake Forest. It's just right up the road from where we are, maybe about an hour and a half. Pastor Rick Warren was the founding pastor of this church, Saddleback Church, and he pastored that church for 43 years. If you can imagine, 43 years he led that church. Started it with just a handful of people, grew it to one of the largest churches in the world, really, and he was probably one of the most influential pastors of all time. And he just transitioned, and they actually did a very good job with their transition up there at Saddleback. That's something to study, right? How they did. Now, we'll probably want to wait for a few years, because oftentimes the transitions struggle, as time moves forward, right? As you get into the end of the first year, the second year, the third year. But I think that this one's going to work. They did it extremely well. So I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about that whole, succession and transition. And one of the things that the podcast owner, I guess if you call it that, it was his podcast. One of the things he said about Rick Warren, he said, I went to go visit. And he said, I sat there on the left-hand side of the auditorium, and it's a big auditorium. I've been up there a few times. I love Saddleback Church. It's one of my favorite churches. Just how they lay it out and what they do, it's just incredible. The music, all that stuff. And so he said he was sitting there, and he said Rick Warren, who's the founding pastor of that church, walked out, and he said there was something about him that I felt loved. I felt seen, and I felt loved. And that really resonated with me as I was listening to the podcast, because it goes back to everything we're talking about. This is why Rick Warren has been massively, successful in life and successful with his church, is because he genuinely loves people. I believe that. I feel the same way. I've been there one time. I'll never forget. I went up and I took a group of people, with me. We went to visit that church. and we were sitting way in the back. And when Rick Warren walked out, it was that same thing. It was like the dad that, it was like the dad that everybody loves, right? And we're going to talk about that probably at some point here in the next couple of weeks, probably one of our last podcasts, how important that is, right? That parental figure. When we see leaders, we want them to be the dad that we didn't have. We want them to be the mom that we didn't have, right? That's kind of that leadership mentality. And when you come with that kind of perspective, when you come to leadership that way, filled with love, I know in the workplace we can't use that word a lot, but when you come with that mindset of I'm here to serve you, that's when you're going to be absolutely successful in leadership, right? I think it's the highest form of leadership. You can be successful and not empower people. You can be successful and not love people. We've seen a lot of leaders who've done that, right? That's a whole nother conversation about what leadership actually is. But I think the highest form of leadership is when people are grateful for you, they love you, they're inspired by you, and they really believe that you're in it for them, right? Now, here's the way you have to do that. You've got to be healthy. I've got to be healthy, right? That's the only way that we can give of ourselves in our leadership roles. If we come and it's still about us, we've talked about this already, so I won't try to belabor that point. If we come to leadership and it's still about us, and I still need the boss to tell me how great I am, and it's all about power, and it's all about insecurity, and I got made fun of when I was in third grade, and now I'm using this leadership role to show everyone how great I am. When it becomes about that, you can't really lead from a really solid place, and I promise you, very few people are going to walk away from your leadership and say, this was a good leader. So one of the tools, or I guess one of the mindsets, before we get to the tool, is a mindset of self-development, is a mindset of personal development, every day consistently trying to get better, because I know as a leader, right, this is what matters. I want to be the kind of leader who gives to my organization. I want to be the kind of leader who gives to other people. And the only way that I can do that is if I'm a full person myself. Which is why parenting is so important, right? And if you didn't have great parents, that's okay, but you've got to take care of it. You've got to pick up the slack and say, well, all the deficits I have because I didn't have a good dad, because I didn't have a good mom, that's yours to handle. Or I promise you, you're not going to have a long journey in leadership. You might be a great employee, you might be a star employee, but leadership's a whole nother level. We've talked about that. It's about making other people shine, making other people great. And the best way to do that is when you really genuinely care about people and you care about their success and who they are. One of the tools to do this is journaling. That's why I set all that up. I set all of that to get to this point, because it's everything we're going to talk about today. It's been hugely impactful for me, and I thought I would sit here and tell you why, but I couldn't even figure out for me why. I think I know why, and as we walk through the article we're going to walk through today, I'm seeing why. I can just tell you from my experience, right? And it's been a lot of trial and error trying to get to it. And when I look at my journal entries back in 2015, 2016, 2012, especially back when I first started, I'm almost embarrassed, by the entries. They were just so self-serving. And so it was just all about me. But what's great about this is I've been able to watch my own in a very private way, because no one's ever going to see my journals. I promise you that. I have strict orders that they need to be burned, right? They're password protected. They're on my computer, and I want my computer burned as soon as I pass away. I don't want anyone seeing what's in the journal. And it's because of what we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. It's the one place that I can be truly honest about life. I can be truly honest about coworkers. I can be truly honest about my relationships. I can be truly honest about who I am, myself. That's the most important thing, right? My own journey. And so it's been amazing to see the growth as I go back and I read those and I say, wow, I am a different person today, 2023, than I was back in 2012. And I think that this has been a reason for it. So I'm done selling it. We need to get to our article here, because this is really important. And I hope that you can see this. You don't need to necessarily be watching this podcast, but I've got an article here that I pulled up. And it's off of healthline.com, and it's called The 6 Journaling Benefits and How to Start Right Now. The 6 Journaling Benefits and How to Start Right Now. If you are not journaling yet, I strongly encourage you, get going on it. This is probably one of the greatest self-development tools that exist, and I want you to be successful. So this might be a good thing for you. Okay, so here we go. So let's read a little bit, and then I want to get into the benefits of why journaling is important. You may be surprised to learn that one of your best wellness tools is actually a journal. Journaling offers an array of benefits from easing stress to sparking self-discovery. And I think that's what it's about. Easing stress means you're having a hard day, you're struggling in a relationship, you're struggling in a friendship, you're struggling with work, your boss is getting on your nerves. This is where you get to put it. You can say whatever you want in a journal. That's the greatest thing. That's why I've said no one's ever going to see mine, right? I just bear it all, right? Because I can. It's my journal. I get to say whatever I want, right? But then it also leads to self-discovery. And what's amazing is every time I get into my journal, and it will start with something maybe that's frustrating or something good or something, I will say this, that the longest journals I have, the ones that are, again, 0.5 margins, single space, 10-point font, the ones that are longest, like 8, 9, 10 pages, tend to come out of hardships, tend to come out of hard days, things that happen that aren't great, right? But what's great about it, you start writing, and it really doesn't happen in conversation, at least in my life it hasn't. It doesn't happen even when I go on a walk, and I love to go on long walks because that's a great way to think as well. But there's something about now I type mine out, but there's something about putting your pen to paper or pencil to paper or your fingers to a keyboard that your thoughts somehow between your brain and your fingers, your thoughts become entangled. And there's actually a saying that says something along those lines, and I forget what the saying is, but our thoughts really do become, untangled, and we're able to see things much more clearly, right? Much clearer, much more clear. You get the idea. I've been on walks before because, again, I found that walks are a great way to think, but I'll get on walks and I can't wait to get home back to my journal because I realize even after an hour and a half walk, I still have not processed it out, but there's something about getting in there and typing it out. I'm able to really work through that issue. Okay. So it's for easing stress, and it's also for self-discovery and seeing those things that you need to work on, the reasons why you do certain things. Okay. So here we go. I think they're just giving us some reasons here. So here are some benefits. Okay. So number one, it helps to reduce stress, right? And again, this is something we'll talk about here in a little bit. If you don't know what to write, start with writing three things you're grateful for. Write the story of your life in 6 words. Write three wishes that you have. These might be prompts that you start off with, right? If you're not exactly sure what to start with, and I'll give you some help here as we get to the end of the video. But these could just be prompts that you start with. Okay, I don't know what to write. Okay, well, I'll start with gratitude, right? And somehow, I promise you, I don't know how to explain it, but somehow you get in there and you start doing it, and it just leads to something else. It says right here, in a follow-up study 12 to 8 months later, 85% of the participants reported that the writing exercise was helpful. 59% continued to use writing to cope with stress. There's something about writing that really helps us kind of alleviate stress. Number 2, journaling may boost health and well-being, right? So a 2018 research review suggests that writing about your deepest thoughts and feelings may contribute to fewer stress-related doctor visits, lower blood pressure, improved mood, greater well-being. I got to tell you, I don't go to the doctor hardly at all. As a matter of fact, my wife was all over me about this, and it's something that I actually need to do pretty soon. But the one time I went, I thought there was something wrong with me. I went to the doctor's office, and nothing wrong. Said, you're as healthy as an ox. And I've been through a lot in life, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, a lot of disappointment. I have a saying for myself: life is war, life is pain. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I love life. I love the journey. I chase difficulty, right? But it's a wonder that I haven't had some major things that have happened with my health. And I credit it to journaling. I credit it, to being in there and all those nasty thoughts to get in there sometimes. Because when you go through painful things, you go through hard things, it creates a lot of emotions. It creates a lot of things in your mind. But I find that when I get them out on paper, it leaves me, right? And it goes straight to the paper. So I think that's helpful. Number 3, journaling encourages space from negative thoughts. And then it says this: when negative or worried thoughts arise, it's easy to get caught up in their catastrophic stories. Jotting down your thoughts, however, creates space and distance to consider them in a more objective way. This distance is formally called cognitive diffusion, a helpful concept from acceptance and commitment therapy. The idea is that you are not your thoughts, emotions, or physical symptoms. Instead, you are the context in which they occur. So I'll tell you this, just last week, I'm going to be transparent with you. I'm in my doctoral program. And so I'm doing my education, and it is stressful. I'm in the final few months of it, and it's more stressful now than it's ever been. And it's not easy. I'm actually doing my comp exams right now. So there are three major papers you have to write. And here's, you get 8 weeks to get these three papers done. You get about 2 weeks each to write these papers. And if you fail a paper, they give you one more chance to write it. And if you fail it the second time, you fail the course, because you've got to pass all three comp exams. And so I on the first one, nailed it, walked through, it was great. The second comp exam, and I knew it when I turned it in. I said it doesn't feel right, but I had a busy week, I had a lot of things going on, and so I just kind of pushed it through. And I thought it's and it really wasn't a bad paper at all, right? I don't think I'm a bad writer, but it didn't get the job done, and so I failed it. And I will tell you this, the stress, and then I found out my comp exam 3 is about statistical analysis, and I can't stand statistics. So all of that happened within the span of like 24 hours, and I woke up on a Saturday morning and I was stressed out. I mean, my mind was going all kinds of places. I was angry. I was, and one of the things I found is going to the gym and exercising, all that stuff helps as well. But there's something about, again, that journal. So I realized if I'm going to get anything done today and be a decent father, be a decent husband, be a decent person who gives back to society, I've got to get my journal. And so I did. It led to 6 pages, and it led to other things, right? Again, I'm being really transparent with you in saying this. Having those two things, right? Hearing that I failed my comp exam number 2. I don't know if I shared that with you, but I failed it. I came in under the points I needed to have, and so I had to redo it. I hate redoing work. So I failed my comp exam 2, found out comp exam 3 was about statistical analysis, something I feel incredibly inadequate with. I was ready to quit the program. I said, I'm done. I'm not doing a doctorate. Now, here's the deal for me. First of all, I can't quit. Right? There's just no way I'm going to quit, right? I've worked so, if I could tell you the story how I was able to get here, like, you realize I can't quit. But in that moment, it was so overwhelming for me to realize that I'd failed my comp exam 2 and then find out comp exam 3. So not only am I going to have to rework this comp exam 2, I've got to do comp exam, and I'm looking forward to comp exam 3, and I'm actually in the middle of doing it right now, which is going to be next to impossible. I thought I left statistics a long time ago, so I was ready to quit. And so I got in my journal, and I realized there were a lot of other things that were happening that led to that. There were a lot of other emotions I was feeling, other thoughts. I don't think I journaled for 4 or 5 days. There are other things that were going on in my life. And so I was able to really get down there. And by the time I got done, this sense of peace and calm came to me. And it just said, hey, JC, just like every other time, you're going to be A-okay. So you get your butt up, you get your rear end up, off the couch, you get out from behind this table, you put the journal away, and you make a plan. And that's what I was able to do. But it came through that journaling, right? I mean, I was really this close to quitting. And, quitting a doctorate, again, for me would be detrimental because I need it for my job. I want it, right? I've worked so hard to get here to this point. I don't want to let that go. But because of all those emotions rolling around in my head and all these thoughts, and I couldn't make sense of them, it helped to really put it on paper. And then I was able to really make a plan and say, I got this. Okay. I'll make this happen. So it encourages space from those negative thoughts. There's something about getting it on paper. You see it and you realize, okay, I'm not these thoughts, but these thoughts are going to help me create a plan so I can be successful. Number 4, journaling provides a way to process emotions. Plenty of people move about their days either not noticing their emotions or actively pushing them down. We all do this. I do it and you do it. I promise you that. Okay. I mean, just small things, right? I found out the other day that a teacher friend of mine, I shouldn't say friend, he was one of my teachers, foundational part of who I am. And I haven't been close to him for years, but he's been a major encouragement from a distance on Facebook and that kind of stuff. And found out he passed away the other day at the age of 75. And I didn't realize that. I read it and I kind of kept scrolling. I made a comment on it or something. I'm so sorry for your loss, whatever. Kept scrolling. But later that night, my anxiety, I had some anxiety going on. My emotions weren't what they needed to be. And I got in my journal and realized I was really upset about hearing about this person pass away. Like, this person was foundational for me. I started thinking about stories that I had, engaged with this person. This was a teacher who I remember years ago, I could have gotten in a lot of trouble. He caught me in a lie, and this was at a small Christian school back in Indiana. And so I started thinking about that and how he showed a ton of grace in that situation. There are a couple other situations, and I ran into him in a Starbucks when I was at home. And so all these moments, these touch points that he touched my life, I didn't realize until I got into the journal how much this man meant to me. And I'm kind of getting emotional thinking about right now. Those kind of emotions affect our days, right? They impact our days. And so by the time I was able to get it in the journal, it was probably 2 pages I wrote on him. I found some pictures online and I put those in my journal as well. And so that when I go back at the end of the year, I'll be able to remember him, right? I put pictures. I'll explain some of that here in a little bit. But it was really important in that moment because I didn't recognize how much those emotions were impacting me. But I was able to get it down, and then I was able to hear the lessons I learned from the life of Mike Warbach, right, and how important he was to me. So it provides a way to process emotions, even, good emotions. Sometimes great things happen. We're excited and you get in a journal and you're able to put it in there. JC, or you may say this about yourself, I'm so proud of you. Right. I'm so proud of what you did today. You did it, right? You're able to do that, right? For some of us on the call, you have great parents. They're active in your life. There's probably some of you on the call that don't have great parents. And there's some of you that your parents have passed away. And so you don't have anyone to give you those pats on the back and tell you did a great job. And so you need to do that yourself. And a journal is a great way to do that. Number 5, journaling can help you figure out your next step. This is key right here. And I explained an example about how that happened. A lot of emotions going on. Failed my comp exam. 2, comp exam 3 is going to be much more difficult than I wanted. All over the place. I'm ready to quit. I'm ready to just blow my steam. And finally sitting down in the journal after about 6, 7, 8 pages, I realized, okay, here's the next plan. Here's the next step. But this can help in life too. You're trying to figure out what job you need to take. Get in there and start writing, right? You're trying to figure out, this is a big one for those of you who may not be married yet. Maybe you're dating and you're trying to figure out, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? Journaling is a powerful way to make that decision. And I would say not just one journal entry. Give yourself 30 days of making journal entries, or even longer. Give yourself 6 months of making journal entries. Then you can go back and look at patterns. How did this person make me feel? What were the actions that this person took? How did I give to this relationship? What were things that I could have improved, right? There's something about that journaling that keeps a record, and it helps us go back and just notice all the different patterns, right? So it can help us figure out next steps. Journaling deepens self-discovery. We've already talked about that. There's something about writing in there that helps you see, here's what this is about. And again, the whole thing that I went through just last week, comp exam, right? All that stuff, it led to these deeper thoughts that I didn't even realize I didn't realize that I was wrestling with, but there's something about that writing that helps us do that. So here's some simple tips to start, and I'll kind of showcase some of these a little bit. I won't spend too much time on this because you can watch. There's tons of YouTube videos on this. If journaling is something you want to do, I encourage you to watch those videos. I'm going to give you some tips here as well, and hopefully after just this video, you'll be able to, you'll be able to start journaling. You'll be able to start doing the things you need to do. But I'm going to encourage you to just get going, start writing. This really is a powerful tool. One of the videos I watched, I was going to try to input another video into here so you could hear somebody else talk about this, not just me, right? That's all you're hearing is my voice. And I found this guy, but it was a totally inappropriate video. He made a lot of good points, but it's too much language and all that kind of stuff. And we're at a faith-based institution, so I got to be careful. I don't want to lose my job, right? And but one of the points he made is that he pointed out some of the greatest people, and if I mentioned all their names, Thomas Edison, I think he said Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson. He mentioned a lot of people, and basically, I didn't think about it this way. These were people that helped shape all of our worlds, right? These were kind of masters of the universe. And then he said every single one of them had a journal. Every single one of them. And I'll tell you this, I like to study billionaires. There's just something about, old white men that are billionaires. I don't know what it is, right? And I like to study their lives. I like to study kind of what they do. And Charles Koch and Ray Dalio. And I'm not trying to make a racial joke there, okay? And by the way, my father's white, okay? I was adopted into a white family. But I like to study these people, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, all these billionaires. And one of the things that each one of them do, I don't know if all of them journal, Bill Gates, right? But they're all very reflective in terms of how they see the world. That they're not just in the moment. That, Bill Gates talks about going out and reading. He takes reading vacations, right? Now, I don't have the money to do that. Maybe you're probably in the same boat that I am. I can't take 30 days off and just take, 10 books out to the middle of nowhere and just read. But I would say this, that's how he got to where he was. Right? He started doing this a long time. Warren Buffett talks about the importance of reading in his own journal, right? In his own journey. So there's something about that taking time and being quiet, reflecting, And again, some of the greats that we hear about, Benjamin Franklin, some of these people, all of them have journals, and so that they're able to look back on their life and reflect. So I would encourage you, just start. So it says here, take a micro step, right? Just start, right? You can just start. You can open up a Word doc or find a booklet. I've got this booklet right here. So anytime I go on a kayak, I take out small books like this, right? And I've got several of them actually sitting right here, because kayaking is a great, place for me. I'll go out and find a spot out in the middle of the water and just kind of sit there for an hour, and I'll just, get my thoughts on paper. So you can take a journal like this and just start writing, right? And I'll give you some prompts that you can write about here in just a second, but just start writing. Pick the simplest tools, right? A blank doc on your laptop, a note-taking app on your phone. Sometimes when I'm in the gym, I'll just break out my notes and I'll just start writing in there, and then I'll add those notes to my journal later so I have a record of those. Putting pen to paper. Again, try free writing, right? That means you just sit down, you take a deep breath is what they're saying, and you just start writing. Right? You notice your surroundings, notice what's around you, and you just start writing. I promise you this, when you get the pen to the paper or you get your fingers on the keyboard, you may not know where to start, but once you start, especially if it's journaling and there's not an assignment, it's not a book you're writing, no one else is going to watch it. I promise you this, once you start typing, your fingers are going to tell you where to go. And by the time you get done, you'll say, wow, I can't believe that I just experienced what I just experienced. But there's something about your body. It knows where it needs to take you. Let it all out, right? You can say whatever you want in a journal. Mine is password protected. I encourage you to do the same, especially if it's a journal where you want to let it all out, because you can say whatever you want about whoever you want. Okay. And nobody can say anything to you because it's your journal. Anchor your journal, right? So that's talking about this. If you're not sure when to do it, right? Because it's really good to get into a habit of it, but anchor it to something else that you already do, right? So it says before or after a nightly prayer. So maybe you say a prayer at nighttime, right? So before you do that, maybe take 15 to 20 minutes or just 10 minutes even, and just say, I'm going to start typing right now. Okay. I'm just going to type for 10 minutes, say my nightly prayer, and go to sleep. I'll tell you this as well. There's something about, I've learned not to journal too much at the beginning of the day, unless I don't have too much on the plate, on my plate that day, because I get so invested in it, and it's such an emotional thing for me. I'm exhausted the rest of the day. I have found that journaling right before bed, I always sleep 10 times better if I'm able to journal before I go to sleep. There are nights where it's sleepless and I can't sleep. The thing I get up and do is I grab my computer and I turn that light all the way down, because I know you're not supposed to be looking at computers, but there's something about getting those thoughts on paper. If I can't sleep, it's midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, finally put those thoughts on paper, and then I'm like a little baby. I'm out like a light, right? During a commercial break on a TV, you just take out your little notes app and you start, journaling away, whatever thoughts you have. So anchor it to something else you already do. Connect the dots. Okay. This is key. This is important in journaling. To sharpen your self-awareness, you can jot down your feelings around a specific situation day to day. For example, you might simply write, this is what happened today, or I'm experiencing these feelings about it, or I'm thinking these thoughts. I do what's called, oftentimes in my journal, I'll just do what's called a mind dump. If I don't have a lot of time, I only have 15 minutes. Maybe I'm sitting here in my office and I realize I have a meeting to go to, but my emotions aren't right. My thoughts aren't right. I've got 15 minutes and there's nothing else that I need to get done. I'll take those 15 minutes and just do a quick mind dump, and I'll break out my journal and just and I'll show you my categories here in just a couple seconds, but I'll just do a mind dump, how I'm feeling on each area. Now this one says avoid rereading painful entries. I'm a little bit, I think it's okay to do that, right? Because often it helps you see kind of what you're thinking. I'll tell you this, especially years ago, when you write about the relationships you're getting to, especially for those of you who are single and you might, maybe you're looking for someone to spend the rest of your life with, or someone you can settle down with long term. There's something about reading about painful experiences that remind you, right? So especially if there's that one person that keeps kind of coming back, right? You may have a situation like that. And I think I want to get back together with this person. Go back and read exactly why you're not in a relationship with that person. I promise you that will help solve a lot of things for you. Okay, it may not solve everything, but it'll help solve some things. So I would say you don't want to sit in the negativity, but there's something about reading about where you came from that really helps you on where you're going. Okay. So it says if you feel you aren't done with this situation, you can refocus on, right, what you're grateful for in this situation. That's huge. I try to say that in everything, right? God, universe, whatever it is. I come from a faith tradition, so obviously God, thank you for this situation because, and then it helps me find the good in it, no matter what it is, right? I went through a painful divorce 5-6 years ago, and that was very hard to go through. But when I started expressing gratitude in my journal for my ex-wife and the great things that came out of it and the good things that happened, it helped me set up my mind in a different way, and I was able to see that situation a different way. I didn't want to go back, right? But it helped me see the situation in a different way. How you apply what you've learned from it, that's key too, is what am I learning from this situation? How am I going to apply this going forward? And again, that will help you make better decisions moving forward. Then it talks about the prompt. I don't want to spend too much time on this. We've probably gone a little too long on this video already, but I wanted to kind of show you mine so you don't think I'm lying to you. So this is kind of I'm not going to go into all of this, but this is kind of how my journal starts. So this would have been page 1. I think my first day of journaling, because this was such a busy year, it started off incredibly busy, January 11th. And right up there at the top, I've got my daily 9. So these are 9 things I need to be working on almost every single day, right? My doctorate degree, my building my business, being a great professor, reading books, meditating, journaling, right? Acting according to the 6 C's. That's kind of some things I've written down: being calm, collected, cool, courageous, all that kind of stuff. These are things I try to do. Looking at my vision board, all that kind of stuff. I've got some other things in there as well. I divide my journal up into quadrimesters. So I actually go from January 1 to April 30th, and then on April 30th, I will sit down and I'll look back at everything in my journal, and I will. So if I have things in my journal that are really important lessons that I've learned, I'll highlight them in yellow, right? Because you can do that in a Word doc. So I'll just highlight it. Then on April 30th, I'll go back and look through all the highlighted stuff, and I'm able to write out a list about here's what I learned in the first 4 months of 2023. And so hopefully those lessons will help me as I keep going through the rest of the year. But it's really important that at the end of the year, I'll make a master list of those 3 quadrimesters and all that I learned from those. But you can do quarters, right? You can say, okay, every what's a quarter? Is that every 2 months? Every 3 months? I think that's every 3 months, right? Yeah. So every 3 months you might want to do, or monthly, right? You can do the same thing on a monthly basis, but I divide it up. And then I'm not going to show you mine, right? So I start off with showing some pictures, but then I'll start right here. Like on this one right here, it says Wednesday, January 11th. That was my first one there. And it'll say, I'll write down exactly where I was writing at. And then I got these little prompts there at the top, and it'll say free writing. So just start writing, okay? If I have nothing that I needed to write about, just start writing. But if I'm not exactly sure where to start, I've got my PEMS, okay? Okay, that sounds weird. PMES, and then it's actually FRH. I'll explain that here in just a second. I'll write through what that is. That's my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relational, and then my house, right? So if I have nothing else to write about, just start there. I'll start with, I've got goals up there, gratitude, and then again, more free writing. So that's kind of how, if I really have a good day of journaling, that's how it looks. Start with free writing, then get into my, PMES, FRH, then go into my goals, then go into gratitude, and then end with free writing. And that's pretty much a solid day. So here's a blank sheet of paper I think that I have, or let's just open up a blank sheet of paper, a new doc, right? So if you're starting, here's what I do. I start here, okay? Physical. And then now I don't have time to go into all of this, but I have certain things I know I have to do every single day. I need to drink 3.5 liters of water, need to be in bed by a certain time. Now, I don't hit these a lot, okay? But they're goals that I have every single day that I know if I do these, it's going to be a good day. Going to bed at a certain time, making sure I'm eating certain kind of foods, not eating certain kind of foods. Again, I don't do this all the time, but I also get to just put, how am I feeling physically, right? So if I just go physical, and then I can hit that up and just say, I am tired, right? And so right there, I'm tired, and then maybe I'll list off I'm tired because, and then I'll just go list off those things. I'm tired because I went kayaking today, or I'm tired because I stayed up till 2 o'clock in the morning the other night working. I'm tired because I've got all these things going on, right? So I start there. Then once I'm done with physical, or maybe I'm feeling really good that day, right? I had a good workout or something. I can put that in there too. And then I go to, mental. Okay, so that's PMES. I go to mental, and for me, that surrounds the ideas of manifesting, meditating, reading, journaling, and gratitude. So if I do those things every single day, I know it's going to be a good day. But that has to do with kind of the thoughts that are in my head, right? So what's in my head? And maybe I've got thoughts that, I'm struggling at work. because, right? And always get that word because there, and then just start writing, right? And then you write whatever you want right there. And again, these are just thoughts that are in your head. So whatever's mental, it might be something I learned in a book. I learned, you know, I'm not a great typer, by the way, as you can see here. I learned XYZ in such and such book, right? You can do that. Then after I get done with mental, I go to my emotional. Now, emotional for me, how I define it, it's basically my actions, right? Because this is what you can always define a person. You don't know what's in a person's mind, but you know, you've heard people say this about people before. That person's a really emotional person. And when they're saying that person is an emotional person, what they're saying is that person is acting in such a way that they seem to be emotional. They're putting their emotions on display, right? So emotional for me is, how do I act, you know, during a day? You know, how are my emotions based on what's going on in my mind? And this is kind of how I played it out, because I realized that it's got to start with the physical, right? If I'm not taking care of myself physically, I'm not going to be good mentally, which means I'm not going to be good emotionally, right? So I kind of step it up. But emotional for me, like I've got my 6 C's, right? You always want to be calm, cool, collected, courageous, consistent, and there's a 6th one. I always miss that last one. Calm, cool, collected, cool, courageous, consistent, centered. Right? Always want to be centered. And so if I'm feeling off of that, I'll just say, I'm not living according to the 6 C's because, and then I write whatever's going on. And again, there's something about the thoughts that help show me, here's the reason why this isn't happening. I'll go to spiritual. Spiritual can be, you know, whatever it needs to be. For me, it's about, am I doing the things that God has designed me to do? Right? So for me, it's about living according to my purpose. And so if I'm not living according to my purpose, why? I'll go from spiritual into, so physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial. How's everything doing in my life financially, right? Are my bills getting paid? Is my credit going in the direction it needs to be? Am I saving the kind of money I need to save? Am I misspending? And then why, right? So if maybe, you know, like we had this a couple weeks ago, I'll be honest with my family, we decided we want to go and stay at a nice hotel up in Anaheim. And to be honest, it's not that we couldn't do it financially, just that we shouldn't have done it financially. There's other things that money could have gone to. And so I got in there and said, well, why did I make that decision financially? And I was able to figure out, you know, I'm really stressed. And so I didn't regret it. It was a good decision. Good things came out of it. But it was a stressful decision that I made. It wasn't necessarily made out of a healthy place. It was made more of, I'm stressed. I need to get out of San Diego for a couple of days, and I need to rest, right? But I was able to figure that out. And so next time that happens to me, I'll say, okay, what's going on? Are there other ways that you can alleviate that stress? Relational. All right, so I just go through the list of my relationships, my wife, my kids, coworkers, right? And this is where I get to write out anything I'm feeling. So if there's a coworker who's getting on my nerves, I'm going to put it right inside of here, okay? And then for me, I'm actually changing this now to provisional, because I like I just like that it matches a little bit. Provisional, and this goes for like house, car, boat. I don't have a boat just yet, but I'm hoping. I have a kayak, but I don't have a boat. So all the toys that I want in life, all the things I have around me, and how's all that going? So anyway, this helps you to get started. Okay, so these might be prompts. How am I doing physically? How am I doing mentally? How am I doing emotionally? How am I doing spiritually, financially, relationally? Start there, and then I promise you, if you start there, it's going to lead you. And there are a lot of times I'll start with physical. I'm tired because, and that happens to be a state that I'm in right now, just because of work and doctorate and trying to build a business, and our families are blending. And so there's a lot of things going on in my life. So I'm living a constant state of tiredness, but oftentimes I'll find that I get, you know, I just put physical up and I get all the things I need to get out just in that one, right? Because I realize I'm tired because I haven't been drinking the water I need to drink. I haven't gotten the rest I needed to get. I haven't been to the gym the way I needed to. I haven't been exercising. So anyway, it's just great. And all of this, I say all of this, and then I'll get to our questions and we'll end this video. I say all of this because this tool right here helps me, so that I'm able to now be present with the people I lead, with the people I teach. I can go into a corporate training and I'm not worried about JC anymore, right? Because all my thoughts are there. I've highlighted what I need to highlight. I'll come back to it later in the day. I'll come back to it the next day. I know what needs to get done. I've set out a plan. So now I can be available for the people I need to serve, available for the people I need to spend time. I want the same thing for you. If there's anything that you take away from this class, from our time together, it's this. In order to be a great leader, you've got to be a healthy leader. That means you've got to take care of yourself in the ways that you need to take care of yourself. Journaling is one of the most powerful ways to do it, okay? You figure out how to do it, whatever looks best for you. You may not have to do it the way I do. Maybe you're better at free writing. You've got other prompts you want to use. You do it however you want to. But I promise you, journaling is one of the keys, I promise to you, your leadership success down the road. All right, everybody, I hope this video's added value. So let's get to our questions. I want you to think about 3 things that I said in the video, and I want you to write out 3 things. So write out 3 things based on the video, okay? And I don't care what they are. Why is journaling important? Okay, so I hope you listen, or else you got to go back and rewind and figure out those. I gave you 6 reasons based on that, off the article right there. But based on what you just heard, why do you think journaling is important to you? Okay, reason number 1 is important because. Reason number 2, journaling is important because. Right. Reason number 3, journaling is important because. So answer those 3 things, and then I want you to. Here's the 4th question I want you to answer. Okay, what is my biggest fear in starting to journal? What is my biggest fear in starting to journal? So again, so you need to answer 4 things. Number 1, journaling is important because. Answer it based on the video. Number 2, journaling is important because. Answer it based on the video. Number 3, journaling is important because. Answer it based on the video. Number 4, what is my greatest fear in starting journaling? Unless you are journaling. If you are, just say, I'm already journaling. Right now, don't lie to me about it. Okay, don't lie about it. Okay, because this is for you. Right? I'm giving you tools that I think will transform your life. Don't lie about it. If you're not journaling yet, tell me why, right? And you can write it in 1 or 2 sentences, but I want you to think about that and think about, is that really a good enough fear to hold you back from a tool that can be very pivotal for your future success? I hope this has added value to you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care, everybody. If you haven't started journaling, start now. I'll talk to you soon.